This is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and you're listening to Unknown Origins Radio.
We live in a world filled with the unknown.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Unknown Origins Radio, where we talk about everything having to do with the strange and paranormal here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Johnson, and joining me is our co-host, Mr. Bruce Pearson. How are you tonight, Bruce?
Great. Thanks, Mike. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. And as usual, we have Mr. Keith Rowland producing in the background. We don't say this enough on the air. We say it off the air, but, we have to throw our kudos out to Keith. He produces us every week here on Dark Matter, does a phenomenal job. We wouldn't run as smoothly as we do without him. So, Keith, we got to throw you our kudos there. So, welcome to another edition. We're going to have a great guest here coming up in just a few minutes. Before we get going, of course, we just, want to do our usual housekeeping, things that are coming up. We definitely wanted to bring up the event that's coming up this Saturday. Bruce, I will let you talk a little bit more about that since you've been really streamlining that the last few weeks.
Well, yeah, I'm going to be involved with it down in Westfield, New Jersey, with Bruce Tango. He has the premiere of his documentary about the incident that kind of got him involved in the paranormal when he was 6 years old. The Staring Man is the name of the program. It'll be premiered in Westfield from 6 till 10 p.m. is the time of the event. With dinner and there's some entertainment and, of course, a Q&A and meet and greet and all that neat stuff. And that's this Saturday in Westfield, New Jersey. Staring Man, you can look it up on the Internet. There's a couple tickets left. I think he's got almost 400 tickets sold at this point. So it's a pretty big venue. It's a very nice hall. We've done some fundraisers over the years with the Ghost Hunters team for Tourette syndrome, and they're going to raise money this time for both Tourette syndrome research and also childhood cancer. So it's for a good cause. If you're anywhere within traveling distance out of New York, Philadelphia area, or anywhere in New Jersey, it's going to be a good time. So, Bruce has put a lot into this thing for the last year or so, and it's a very well done program. Excuse me. And so you can get a hold of me and Mark at Dark Matter Network at Unknown Origins Radio on our website. Get some information. You can go on the web, and Staring Man should be easy to find, and you can get the information there.
That's going to sound like a great event. I really wish I could make it. Unfortunately, I'm tied up this weekend, but definitely say hi to Bruce for me and let me know how the movie comes out. And, the movie, the DVD, they are premiering the movie this weekend, but right. It is also available for purchase on DVD. Do you know the website where it's available?
No, but I'll get it for next week once it's had the premiere. I know he's started doing some pre-sales on it, and I don't have that information. It's an interesting. I had it written down, and I actually don't have it with me right now, but I'll make sure I have it for the listeners next week.
Okay, great. We've got a couple of other things that are coming up, too, as we've mentioned before, and I'll be promoting this for the next couple of months, that this June, Phenomenology 107 is coming back to Pennsylvania, outside of Gettysburg in York, Pennsylvania, and that'll be June 18th through the 21st. You can go to their website at phenomevents.com to get tickets, get a full lineup. They've got a lot of great guests, a lot of big names in the paranormal. And one of the things they're really focusing on this year are those people who have experienced the extreme hauntings. And they're having the survivors from the Amityville Horror House, the original children from the Amityville Horror, the family from The Haunting in Connecticut that they made the movie about, the movie The Conjuring. They have that family will be there as well. Our good friend Bill Bean and and so many other people that have had these extreme hauntings. So that's the theme for this year, and they've got a lot of great guests. So you can go to phenomevents.com, see the full lineup, get tickets, get your hotel information. We've been there for the last several years. It's really a fun event, and it's a great time. You learn so much, get to interact with everybody, especially in the vendor room. There's always so much going on in the vendor room, the lectures, there's ghost hunts, a lot of different things. So definitely check it out. If you need more information on that, again, phenomevents.com, or you can even feel free to contact us at unknownoriginsradio.com, and we can give you some more information. Also wanted to point out, on a personal note, really excited to announce that today we launched with Glennet Ty Publishing. We launched a brand new book, and we're very excited about this. We have a new author who came on board today. His name is Barry Durham. He's an author out of the UK, and he has previously self-published a series of novels based on the Demdike witches, the Pendle witches, which was, in here in America, when we think of witches, we think of the Salem witch trials. Well, in England, they had their own version back in 1602, which was the Pendle witches, which were a lot of people who were unfairly accused of witchcraft, had their homes and their properties seized by the town or the state. It was really a scandal at the time. And Barry, who has written a wonderful novel called The Demdike Legacy, and it's actually a paranormal mystery novel. It's a detective novel with a paranormal edge to it, and dealing with some survivors of the descendants of the original Pendle witches. And someone is killing off, and they have to band together with the police to solve this murder. I've read the book. It is really phenomenal, and we're really happy to have him on board. So that book launches today with Glennet Ty, and is now available on our website at glennetty.com. And it's also available on Amazon.com in softcover and Kindle format. We're actually going to try to get Barry on the show here coming up in the near future because, as an author, he's also a lecturer, and he has a great fascination for the history of England with the Pendle witches and the witchcraft of the area. And I think it'd be a great topic for the show. So we'll see what we can do to get Barry on here in the near future. But definitely check out the book, glennetty.com or on Amazon, The Demdike Legacy. Great book.
Well, congratulations to you and Irene also, and you guys are really growing in leaps and bounds with the media empire, as I call it.
We start off small little steps, and things are just happening, and we're just really, really excited about it. I mean, what makes me happy for it, and I'm not trying to turn this into a self-commercial here, but what I really enjoy doing is helping other people get their stuff out there and published and in the public eye. And that's what makes me feel good, is getting somebody who normally wouldn't be able to get their work out there and seen by the public. We help them publish, get their books out there. We've worked out some distribution deals. We're going to be, hopefully our books are going to be in a lot of the major bookstores here very soon. So we've got a lot of things going, and it's really been taken off, and it just makes me feel good that these types of books, these really good books that people out there are writing, get to see the light of day that they may not have with the traditional publishing companies.
Well, that's true, and there's a lot of good stories that need to be told. So, I'm looking forward to reading this latest one you get out as soon as I get a copy in my hands or get an ebook, and it sounds like a fascinating premise. So, look forward to having him on the air, too.
Yes, it'll be good. I just got to work out the time difference because he's in England, so we'll see what we can put together. But on that note, I think it's time to get on with our show tonight. Now we're really excited to welcome back tonight's guest. He was on the show before just a few months ago. We had such a great time talking to him that we had to bring him back on the show because we certainly did not get anywhere near to being able to talk about everything we wanted to talk about that first time. So we want to talk to welcome our guest, Mr. Butch Witkowski. And Butch is the director at the UFO Research Center of Pennsylvania. He's had a lot of years' experience with researching UFOs, the paranormal, and even cryptid encounters throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So, Butch, welcome to the program. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, thanks for coming on. And I know we were actually talking a little bit. We already started some conversations before the show, and I had to stop and say, wait, this is great stuff. We need to save it for the show. But, we always seem to have something to talk about. Just briefly, for those people who may not have heard you on our show before and want to come, and are listening to you for the first time, could you just give our listeners just a brief background of your background and how you got into the UFO research?
Sure. Been in it now. This is my 26th year, I believe. Started out with seeing something in the sky I couldn't explain while I was standing there with other people. Called the local police, sheriff's department, Air Force Base, everything I could think of, radio stations, TV stations, and watched an object that was a good 300 feet long at least, 6-7 stories high, bronze in color, a couple pale green lights on the side, just hovering above a mountain in Tucson, Arizona. My neighbor across the street was standing outside looking at it also. He was at that time director of federal prisons for the state of Arizona and other western states. And my other neighbor was a retired highway patrol officer, and we all looked at it, and we couldn't come up with anything. It just hovered. It was silent. There was no electronics bothered or anything like that. And it just hovered up very silently, a little, maybe 1,500, 2,000 feet high, and shot off to the west like a bullet. I'd never seen anything that fast. I could probably see a bullet faster. Got involved in trying to find out what it was. Of course, when you start out, you just collect books and a lot of paper. And I really didn't have any direction, so I joined MUFON, became a state section director and a chief investigator, star team member with them. After a few years, decided that it wasn't quite going the way I wanted it to go, so I started the UFO Research Center of Pennsylvania in 2009. We have 12 groups. We have 2 in Europe, 1 in England, and 1 in Poland, and the 10 remaining are in the different states in the United States. They're all long-time researchers. Their backgrounds are very varied, from police helicopter pilot to federal investigator to abduction researchers, psychics, the whole gamut, UFO researchers, crypto researchers, ghost hunters. And it seemed to work out a whole lot better because now, instead of just, struggling with one report, I have all these people I can throw a report out to and count on their experiences and their backgrounds to help decipher something that may be giving me an issue or giving them an issue. We publish a monthly magazine on the net on our website called JAR, which is a Journal for Abnormal Abduction Research, which was started originally in 2006, I believe, by Elaine Douglas, who passed away a year ago. And I talked to her to get it up and running again, and which I did. And it's a bi-monthly thing. Unfortunately, she died 2 days before it came out. She was a long-time researcher, 26 years. Boy, she was a hard lady. She was something to deal with. And the group has just continued to grow. New members. We have a cold case unit of 4 gentlemen that really I don't even tell anybody their names. They just go about doing their business on cold cases, which really works out really well. When you walk up to somebody and you're trying to get some information and you tell them you're from such and such UFO group or whatever group, they get tight-lipped or they just walk away laughing or whatever. This way they can get involved in a conversation with that person, and the person has no idea really who they're talking to or what they're talking about, and they're just telling you the truth usually. And it's helped us a great deal in a couple cases that we're working on now. We don't publish a case completed until we're done with it. Those are on our website also. And I guess the shortest case that we ever worked on was probably about a year and a half. Most of them run between a year and, well, the one is running into its 6th year now. But that's pretty much it. It's just a pretty diverse group of people that are really good at what they do and helps us a lot. We help a lot of other people and groups with information, database information, or, our mobile units. We have 2 of those. So it's just took something very small and made it into something very workable, I guess is the best way to put it.
A lot of us have done that. We've done that with our paranormal group here in New Jersey. You got to start from somewhere, and it's those groups that can grow and develop from there. I mean, there's a lot of groups that come and go real quick, a lot of people who are into it just for a quick thrill. And then there are the longtime researchers who stay in and really start to make a difference in the community and with the research. Your group is definitely one of those. And getting into some of the topics that we wanted to cover tonight, I know we started talking about some of them off air. And there's so many that I can look at us going into and talking about tonight. But one of the things we started talking a little bit off air is cryptids. And I know you've done some cryptid research as well. And, we were talking a little bit off air about the differences between, people who look at cryptids as just undiscovered animals and then the paranormal side of it. So I was wondering if you could talk about a couple of the cryptid cases that you've worked on.
Well, the most recent case, I think, is probably the strangest one because we got it about 2 months ago, and this is a gentleman who's grown up in that area, hunted that area, state game land, was walking his 2 Weimaraner dogs, as he always did, up a fire lane. For somebody that doesn't understand what a fire lane is, it's just a path for fire trucks to get in case there's a forest fire. And nothing exciting happening, leaves the truck with the dogs and has them on leashes, and up the road they go. And about 150 yards away from the truck, these dogs freak out. They go absolutely bananas. They start ripping and tearing at the leashes. They're trying to get away from him. They want to head to the woods, and he doesn't see anything. He doesn't see any animals or anything like that. And the dogs are at it that bad that they are actually digging a hole with their front paws trying to get away from him to get to whatever he didn't see. And then as he looks up, he sees this entity, creature, whatever you want to call it, walk out of the right-hand side of the road, out of the woods. He describes it as about 7 foot tall, could be a little larger. It just looked like a large man. It did not resemble Bigfoot or Sasquatch in any way. It had normal arms, legs, but very muscular. Short, dark brown or black hair covering the body. And no tail, no protruding ears that he could see. And the thing that struck him as being the oddest thing out of a very odd situation was it had a snout. And when he says a snout, I asked him what he meant by that, like long dog snout, wolf, something like that. He said, no, more like you'd see on a bulldog or a pug, but it was a protruding snout. And it walked across the road, walked into the other side, and the dogs are still going bananas, and just goes out of sight. So he calms the dogs down enough to go down and get them back to the truck, which he does. He retrieves a handgun, goes back up, can see exactly where he was because of the hole in the ground from the dogs, walks into the woods on the right-hand side, sees nothing, walks on the left-hand side, sees nothing. The oddest part to him was, now this guy's a retired airline commercial pilot and Air Force pilot of 40 years, so he knows what he's looking at. He said it never looked at us, myself or the dogs. He said it walked straight ahead, paid no mind like we were never there. So he said, I don't know if I saw an actual thing or it was an apparition, or he said, I just don't know what to say. So he got back to me later that evening, and he said he was going to get some friends together, and they were going to go look the area up and take the camera and whatever and see if they could find any tracks, footprints. So they go there, and he said, we're right at the spot because there's the hole from the dogs, and they walk into the right-hand side of the woods. Now these guys are pretty much armed to the teeth. High-powered rifles, the whole 9 yards, which I told them that was not really a good idea. But they walked in to the right side, walked back in about 50 to 100 yards, didn't see anything, no broken trees, branches, nothing like that. They walk back out. They all walk into the left side of the road, the other side of the road. They get in about 50 yards. And he said, we all stopped. We all looked at each other, and it was time to get out of Dodge. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, look, I'm never going back there again. He said, I don't know what's in there. I don't know what it was. I can't describe the feeling other than total fear, even though I was standing there with a high-powered weapon in my hand. He said, all I know is we all had the same feeling at the same time, and we all got back to the truck and went home, and I'm never going back there again as long as I live. So I checked with some other researchers that are close to that area, and they related similar reports of not so much the creature, but of people that were with them while they were doing a research investigation who came out of the woods shaken, pale white, and just left, not to be coming back. And he said that happened twice. So what is it? I have no idea. When the weather breaks and I don't freeze to death just walking to my truck, we are going to go up there and spend a weekend and see what we can find. I know where the location is. He gave me a road. He didn't give me the exact location, but he told me the road where the gate was. And when I checked with the other researchers, they said, yes, we know where that gate is. We know where that road is. So I'm pretty much sure I can get to the same location or, within that general area. And but I have no explanation for it. I put it out on the web page. I put it out on Facebook. I put it everywhere I could think of. And nobody came back with anything because it does not look like a Bigfoot. The neck wasn't broad, the head wasn't pointy. I mean, the arms weren't extra long. It wasn't a huge 8-10 foot. He said it was a good 7 foot, maybe a little taller. But he said it walked just like a man. It didn't lumber along, and he said it just walked across the road like we were not there, and we didn't exist.
Was it covered in hair like a Bigfoot? Or naked
head to toe,
like a person?
Very short, dark brown or black hair. No clothing, no swinging arms. He said you would took the hair off the thing and put him in a suit and had him walk across, wouldn't have been any different than a tall man. So now I know there's this big flap going on in the cryptozoology Bigfoot realm of interdimensional beings and humanoid or animal Bigfoot, and but I can't go either way on it. I have to keep an open mind on this because, first of all, without having just a great story told to me, and other people kind of backing up the story with what they said, it's still not evidence of what happened. I can't say it's interdimensional. I don't know if anybody could ever say what's interdimensional and what's not. I mean, that's all kind of speculation at this point. Like parallel worlds and all that stuff. That all very well may be, but there's not enough there to grasp onto to say, well, yeah, that's what it was. And there's not enough to grasp onto that yes, that was a Bigfoot or some related creature. Now, one other thing to throw into the pot, which was very disturbing, was through other researchers in that area, they were doing an investigation, and they were walking up an area close by, maybe a mile or two away, and it was getting dark, and out of the woods strolls a guy in military garb. Now, I don't mean the stuff you buy at your local Army and Navy. This guy had everything. Full automatic weapon, all new gear, the gear that's issued now. and looked at them, and they looked at him, and they both looked as surprised as each other. And the guy said, I'm just hunting some bear, and turned around and walked back into the woods, and he disappeared.
Huh.
Now, that's strange. That is really strange. Now, not too far from that area is Pennsylvania had a nuclear reactor that sits right in the middle of state game lands. It's a forbidden area. It's all blocked off and closed down in the late 1998 or 99, and the license was pulled in 2001 or 2. But it was put there early on in the 60s to develop nuclear engines for private aircraft. And so who knows what's going on? It's one of those things where without going and looking and snooping around and sticking my head where it don't belong, at this point, really all I have is a story. I mean, I have some inroads to information that's been gathered, but as far as saying what it was he saw, was it interdimensional? Did it walk across thinking it didn't see them or he didn't see it? So, but the dogs, he said, are very docile. He's had them since pups. He said they've never reacted like that, and he said they saw it long before I did. He said there was a good 2 or 3 minutes before that thing stepped out of the woods, and he said they already knew it was there beforehand. And at first he thought, it was a skunk or a bear or a deer or something, but he said when that walked out, I asked him what he did. He said, I just froze and started staring at it and watching it. He said, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was going to do. And I said, well, what would you have done had it turned, to face you? He said, I'd let the dogs go. I said, well, yeah, good idea. But that's very strange. That's a very strange case. I've tried to find other cases that mimic it, and I can't find any. I can't even find something that matches the description of the creature that he described.
There's a lot more strange things going on out there, and not only in this country, but in other countries.
Oh, yeah.
Of cryptids that people see that are just simply not undiscovered animals. They're just, they look like some type of being, in some cases, possibly intelligent beings. I'll just bring it up. I asked her if she wanted to come on the air, and she doesn't want to come on the air to talk about it. But, before we were on the show, my business partner, Irene Allen Block, was talking about to you about these creatures that she saw in her garden once in her house in Wales.
Yes.
That looked like what we could only describe as the, if you think of the movie Predator, when the Predator was cloaked, but you could still kind of see that outline, even though it was cloaked, and it looked like something exactly like that. There were two of them, two creatures, and she actually watched one walk right up to her, and then when she said something or made some movement that she let it know she could see it, it froze, and then slowly backed up and walked away. And, you start to think about that. What somebody thinks that right away, the first thought they would think is, well, aliens. Well, how do you know? The fact
exactly.
is, you don't know.
No. And if you don't keep an open mind doing this research and investigation and take everything into consideration, you're just beating a dead horse. You might as well just sit in your living room and watch cartoons, because when you get a report like this where there is no explanation, and not only do you have the person that sees the entity, but you have buddies that go with him the next day, and they all get this same feeling to get out of Dodge. We need to leave, and we need to leave now, and yet they're standing there fully armed, that they could probably take on anything that came at them. Just said, that's it, we're not staying. And, they just all went. And I said to him, well, what, did one guy say something or another guy? He said, no, we all stopped at the same time. And I said, what did you feel? He said, the only best way I can tell you, Butch, he said, it was fear, unbridled fear. And we knew we had to leave. And I went, okay. And then talking to other researchers, they had that happen twice to people that were with them. Like I said, one came running out of the woods for no reason, stone white, and just kept on going. And another group that was with them one time, they had the same thing, and they decided they were going to leave because they never said what they saw. They never said what they felt. They just said, we can't be here right now. We got to go.
What's interesting?
What are these folks seeing? What are they dealing with? What's walking around in these woods or people's homes or whatever? It's something that's not explainable. The first thing I thought of, well, maybe, you hear a lot about Dogman, and Brian Seach out in western Pennsylvania and his wife do a lot of work on that. And I haven't talked to him about this case yet, but I should, I guess. But the descriptions don't match. I mean, dogmen are seen running on all fours or on hind legs, and they resemble a dog. They have the long snout, kind of like werewolf looking. He said this did not look like that. He said this looked like a man. The head was the same as a man, except for this protruding snout, which he described as probably like a bulldog, that not long, but not short, but kind of just protruding. And he said it never really looked at me. He said it just walked across the road and went into the other side, and that was it. So, again, what are we dealing with now?
The one thing that you mentioned about they all felt this intense fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things on that I want to comment on in the research that I've done and people I've talked with. In some Bigfoot cases, there has been some theories that Bigfoot and possibly other creatures use a version of infrasound. Mm-hmm. And are able to generate an infrasound that actually causes people to feel fear, and it's used as a defense mechanism to get people to turn and leave. Mm-hmm. But if you also look in UFO cases, people who have gone through what we would think of as the abduction experience, so many of them feel this overwhelming sense of absolute sheer terror. Whitley Strieber, in his books, he always described, the absolute sheer mindless terror that he would feel during these situations. And to the point where it seems like a lot of people, if they start to think about it, realizing that the terror almost is artificial. Mm-hmm. Like they're being made to feel that way. Mm-hmm. And, maybe in this case, when these hunters see this creature and they feel this terror, maybe it is a form, either a type of infrasound that mm-hmm. is, that it's being used as a defense mechanism to keep danger away. Or maybe even if you look on the paranormal side, maybe a psychic level, that they're able to manipulate people's emotions, just like I think is what happens sometimes in these abduction scenarios, where emotions are controlled to a certain extent for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of cases that are out there that I'm sure you've read and Bruce has read, and I know I've read, where people start talking about telepathy, and they're told not to go there or not to do this or not to be afraid or whatever, and they don't know who they're talking to. They don't see anybody. You have folks that Sasquatch hunters in the northwestern part of the United States that have done the same thing. They're sitting by a campfire, or they're getting their pack together, and next thing you know, they get this feeling of, I need to leave. And they either leave equipment or they grab their gear and they just take off. And they have no explanation for it. They just, like you said, it could be a defense mechanism. Which does make a lot of sense. If there's not going to be any one-on-one contact, and they have that ability to put into somebody's mind, you need to leave now, or think bad things are going to happen, or whatever. I mean, it's logical. I mean, it makes sense. But again, it's such a dark area. And these cases of people seeing entities, whether they're dark shadows in a room or they're clouds on a ceiling that dissipate, or beings, shaped beings that are almost look translucent. I mean, there are so many weird things going on, and really, this stuff has only come out in the last 2 years. That people are coming forward with this stuff, and they're scared to death. I mean, they don't even want to talk about it. Like this guy here, he said when he was done talking to me, he said, that's it. He said, I'm finished. I told you everything I have, everything that happened. This is the way it happened. He said, do with it as you please. He said, just be careful. That was it. That was the end of the story.
You know what? If you turn it around, you know, there's people who have these experiences being in an area and then they get the overwhelming feeling that they have to leave. Mm-hmm. What about those people in UFO cases who get the overwhelming feeling to turn down this dark road? You know, and do something.
Yeah, it works both ways. Yeah. I mean, there are cases where, and this is long before GPSs that put you on the wrong road, where people said, you know, they were driving home the same way that they went every day all their lives, and they had this overwhelming feeling to make a right-hand turn and go up this road or go up this highway and then make another turn. And, you know, they were being directed to go somewhere, and then, of course, then whatever happens with the abduction scenario. But, yeah, that's happened a lot.
Can I go back and ask a couple details? This area, it was in Pennsylvania where they had the nuclear reactor, supposedly?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And what area of Pennsylvania was that?
It's in, let me see here. It's between two counties, but it's actually between Center and Clearfield. Sits right between them. There's a huge state game land, and I mean it's huge. And
there's a lot of them in Pennsylvania.
Thousands of acres.
State forest.
And dead center in this area sits this. Let me pull my file up here while I'm talking about this. It was actually started as just a research center for development of different types of engines for aircraft, and it went on for a while. I understand that it was not very a lot. Let's put it this way: a lot of money was poured into it, and they got a lot of nothing out of it.
Okay.
And the folks that were running it were military and Lycoming aircraft, and they were trying to attach a nuclear device, a nuclear engine, to a small aircraft, and this would have been for commercial use, not military use, because they already had it. And the area is the Quehanna Wildlife Area. If people want to look that up, it's Quehanna. It borders three counties: Cameron, Clearfield, and Elk. And if you just do a wiki on it, I'm sure it's in wiki. If you do a wiki on it, they actually show you a map, and they show you the restricted zone, which is right inside this huge, and it's a huge game land.
What's the nearest city? So for reference, or for listeners that
nearest city would be, let's see.
Lycoming, or?
Well, let me look here once. The nearest city would be.
Well, and while you're doing that, let me explain the bigger context.
Yeah.
Ironically, one of the jobs that Stanton Friedman had was working on nuclear power plants for aircraft. I believe it was in the 50s. Because he trained as a nuclear physicist. But it's interesting because, that was, I believe, and I may be mistaken, but I just found that interesting that they were trying to develop a nuclear reactor to be used for aircraft propulsion.
Yeah, and there is really no small towns around there, but they are all broken up into townships. So if anybody would look up Benezette Township, Benezeette, or Covington, they would find it. But if
there is documentation on the web about this facility.
If they go to the Quehanna Wildlife on Wikipedia, the whole story's there. It's 48,000 acres.
Pretty good piece of chunk of
land. And it was the people that were actually running it. Curtis Wright Corporation bought like 80 square miles of state forest for research in nuclear-powered jet engines. And, of course, you have the West Branch of the Susquehanna River close by for water. So, but I guess they started finding some of the radioactive isotopes up there. Well, they were like strontium-90 and cobalt-60. And it continued into 2002. It cost $30 million to build. And then the nuclear license was terminated in 2009.
Wow, so not long ago.
No, but it's still a restricted area, and it's on the map on Wikipedia. It shows you the restricted area.
That's a fascinating story. I mean, that in of itself was
the one group up there actually Bigfoot research group in that area lives close by, and they had found a core. They were there and found a core sample laying there.
Jeez.
And they took the core sample home. And the way the guy was saying to me, he says, we're looking at this thing, and he says, it's kind of weird looking. And a neighbor came in and said, well, did anybody check this for radiation? And they said, well, no, we don't have that kind of equipment. And he said, well, I do. So he went home and came back and said, you need to bury this right now. He said, it almost pinned the needle.
Oh, geez.
So, I mean, if you got that kind of stuff laying around, and the isotopes they were using were strontium-90 and cobalt-60, I mean, all they would have had to do was stay in a room with that core sample for a couple hours, and they probably wouldn't be around.
Yeah, I wouldn't stick that in your pocket and ride around in the car for a couple of days, that's for sure.
Oh, and I forget what they said it cost to clean it up.
Wow.
It was outrageous, the money, but because it was just, there's radioactive and toxic waste is buried there, so.
Beauty.
That's why they probably still have it restricted.
I would think so. That's probably a little Hanford site there for Pennsylvania.
And that area, when we did some research on the area, that was really the biggest group of Susquehannock and Iroquois Indians that lived in the United States, lived in that wildlife area.
Still live there. They're just, I'm sure that'll bode well for their health. Probably into the groundwater and everything else. Do you feel there's a correlation, therefore, with perhaps that facility and what's been cited in the area with Bigfoot?
I'm kind of putting it that way in my mind.
Okay.
First of all, you got the creature, and then you have the military guy come stomping out of the woods hunting bear. Not with an automatic rifle in this state. And then you have this, which is within a couple mile. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, if they were going to clean this place up, and they said they cleaned it up, why is it still a restricted area and fenced off and all that stuff?
How strictly is it guarded? I mean, are you aware of...
Nobody, no guards or anything like that, but, I mean, it can't be that secure that these guys could walk in and pick up a core sample.
Wow.
I mean, so how many other people have taken a core sample and just, stuck it in the garage or maybe put it on the mantle and say, oh, I got this up at the old nuclear site or something? I mean, if anybody's listening and they got any of that stuff, they need to get rid of it and bury it deep really quick, because strontium-90 alone is very, very deadly. And add cobalt-60 to that, and it's, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, it's just amazing that is left lying around.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just not talk about the fact that how irresponsible that is. But
not only that, but I saw some pictures. I don't remember where I saw them now. It was probably on the internet, but I saw some pictures of the place, and there was graffiti on the walls. So if there's graffiti on the walls, of course that means kids are getting in there. Right. So we got kids in there, and we got live core samples laying around that have already been tested to be positive. So this is not good. This is really not good.
No. And who knows what, like you said, what residual is in the ground and in the ground water.
The water.
Exactly.
Or the water. Some poor guy up there camping or doing some hunting, because the hunting area around it's all open. So they go downstream and they fill up their canteen. They don't know what they're drinking.
Well, the plumes that get into an aquifer, I mean, but this is not uncommon, unfortunately, with the military and the U.S. government. I mean, half of Cape Cod's water supply is polluted.
Oh, yeah.
due to dropping everything that you can think of out in Air Force Base there.
And it's really a hot spot for campers and hikers in the summertime. There's no permanent residents in that whole area. A lot of cross-country skiing in the winter. There are no vehicles allowed in the area. But it's just... Oh, and one of the things is the Audubon Society has it listed as one of the most important bird areas in the state of Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's good. It's easy to track them when they glow in the dark, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Mark, but just not to get off on this topic, but our wonderful Garden State, you go down to Lakehurst, and, they were dumping benzene and every bloody other thing into the ground out there, and they polluted most of the water down around McGuire and Lakehurst and that whole area. And
there's a big scandal of that in the 70s, wasn't there?
Sure.
Love Canal or whatever it was.
The Philadelphia Navy Yard built some of their docks by taking drums, filling them with sand and hydraulic fluid when they were refitting ships, burying the drums on top of each other and building bulkheads to add extra piers. And that's right along the Delaware River. So, you could go on for hours of this type of environmental abuse. But, nuclear radiation, not to bring it in, but anybody that wants to check into nuclear, the problems with nuclear fallout, just go type in on the internet, take a look at the plumes out of Fukushima. Oh, have we ever heard of that? That's been going on for 4 years now, I guess, or somewhat.
Yeah, and if you want to go back to what kind of damage is done from this stuff being thrown around and gotten rid of before there were actually laws against it, look at Love Canal.
Right.
I've driven past that, and it's this whole town that's a ghost town.
Well, of course,
only because they were using polluted oil to keep the dust down on the roads, the back roads and stuff. But it polluted everything. Polluted the groundwater, polluted the local creeks, got into the houses. The rate of cancers were unbelievable. And I know when we go up, we have radiation gear and we have radiation detectors and isotope detectors and stuff. And I'll tell you what, we're going to be dressed to the hilt with everything because I'm not taking any kind of chance.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because not just with this type of investigation. We talked with our good friend David Roundtree, and some of the investigations he's been doing on the paranormal side, where he has been using his equipment and has actually been able to measure what he considers to be singularities or Einstein-Rosen bridges opening by these gamma ray bursts that seem to indicate, in paranormal terms, whether a portal is opening, activity seems to happen during those times. And there were a couple investigations that he did, one last year over at the Shanley Hotel, where the gamma ray that were coming off of that he was measuring were starting to get to dangerous levels where they had to keep people out of the rooms. Mm-hmm. So then it starts making you think, well, these paranormal investigators, we go into places and we're constantly doing these investigations and we're going to all these paranormal spots, and the one piece of gear that we don't take with us is something to measure the radiation.
Yeah, and I put on our website, on our U4COP website on Facebook, all the equipment that we carry, or not all, but most of it. And I had somebody send me a note one time and said, well, why do you carry radiation gear? Why would you carry radiation gear for paranormal investigation? I said, you should carry radiation gear no matter where you go. You spend almost $1,000 for an infrared camera or a multispectrum camera, and you don't buy a $150 radiation detector. Now, what sense does that make?
Exactly.
I said you got radon, you've got residual radiation, and you don't know what's underground. You don't know why that house is abandoned. You don't know why people come out of the house, they don't feel well, or they're dizzy, or they think they had some kind of contact with a spirit. And, if you held a meter up to them, they'd probably light up like a Christmas tree. So, people need to really think about what they're doing and where they're going, especially the folks that go to these old factories and stuff. You don't know what was done in those factories. I mean, a lot of them were during the war. They made weapons, they made bombs, they made bullets. I mean, the chemicals that were used. I mean, the place could be polluted with it, but you're down there stomping around the water and hoping to get a picture of a ghost or something, and you don't know what you're standing in or what you're breathing. And, caution is always the first thing in any investigation. I don't care if it's UFOs or ghosts or paranormal, Sasquatch. If you're out there and you haven't taken the cautions to protect yourself and others that are with you, well, shame on you.
Well, and yes, and I think, I actually had this discussion a couple of times with people and said, I can remember in the I think it was called the Levittown Lunatic Asylum. Here's a 150-year-old tunnel system, just everything slathered in asbestos. You got paint coming off the walls, which are filled with lead. The dust, the mold in these wet, damp buildings, and everybody's trucking around, no mask on or anything.
Nope.
Just the obvious hazards that are there
in
an old building. Would be enough to make, and then you got people just, trotting along, kicking up this dust, and you're breathing it directly in over a period of 6 or 8 hours.
And what amazes me is, and I've gone on a couple of investigations with some other groups, and they show you their first aid kit, which is a little bigger than a pack of cigarettes.
Right.
And I'm going like, come here, I want to show you something. Take them over to the truck and open the truck, and we say, see that big blue bag up there? That's a trauma kit.
Right.
I say, because if you fall and break your leg, that little kit you have isn't going to mean anything, but that blue kit up there has splints in it.
Right, or an air split or whatever. Having been a paramedic, believe me, you're walking around an old building with all kinds of junk laying around, sharp edges, rusted pipes.
Yeah, there was a guy, I think it was a New Jersey group, northern New Jersey, I believe, where the guy walked into a nail.
Yep.
And, impaled himself on a nail that was sticking through a wall. And didn't do anything about it. Of course, got infected. He damn near died, but, he's okay. But just the fact that nobody even had anything or thought to, stop the bleeding or try to control the bleeding or had some kind of antiseptic to apply or anything, or even take him to the hospital 3 days later when he wakes up and his head's swollen up, and then he goes to the hospital. So people really need to exhort caution a lot, whether they're in the woods or they're in an old house or whatever. I mean, you see these things on YouTube where the guy's walking the steps and the steps give away. Fortunately, they catch themselves, but there's got to be somebody out there that went through the floor.
I'm even watching in my guilty pleasure show like Ghost Adventures. It's funny watching them now that they've been on for several seasons, and now whenever they're going into these buildings, now they're throwing on the respirators, and because they learned the hard way, they all got respiratory problems from going in these damp buildings with whatever dust and mold and asbestos and whatever they encounter. They weren't protected before, and now they're paying the price.
Yeah, and it's just like Bruce said. You have no idea what you're walking around in. You have no idea what was there. You have mold, and you have lead, and you have, who knows what you're walking around in? And it's just amazing to me that people just, you see them walking around, and I've seen it firsthand. Flip-flops and shorts and a T-shirt. And, okay, so it's hot outside. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have on a good pair of boots and long pants, you know what I mean, and a respirator. But, people do what they do. And I'll probably never, ever understand it. But it's the way people do things. And I just try to impart a lot that, safety is a big concern. It's a lot of fun, and it's a night out, and it depends on the type of researcher you are. You're either going out for fun and games or you're going out to really see if you can find something. But if you're not prepared for the worst, you better not go. It's just like walking through cemeteries at night with no flashlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not very forgiving when you catch it.
No, granite doesn't give.
Exactly.
And
neither does gravity.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You know, there's an interesting point that you brought up early in your discussion about your background that I think needs to be reiterated, and that is that these cases are not snap your fingers, and you know, most people think that this old house would rebuild a house in 28 minutes, and that these cases all take place, are reviewed and done, you know, in 28 minutes or an hour. The length it takes of the length of most of your cases from beginning to end. I don't think that's a point that most people understand. This is not a hit and run type of business by any means.
No.
Could you talk about why it takes so long for the listeners that aren't familiar with the procedures?
Sure.
I think that's an important aspect of it.
Okay, well, let's take we'll start out with a paranormal case. Okay, so you get somebody that calls you and they say they have something's going on in the home. So now the first thing you want to do is get all the information from them, what they got, what they're going. You need to visit them, showing empathy of what it is, because you don't know what's going on. And then when you get back and you start to do the investigation, then one of the things you want to do is research the house. When was it built? How many people lived there? Was there anything strange that happened at the house? You know, like was there a murder at the house? Was there you know, anything? Just anything you can dig up on the house, the property itself. That's number one. So you got all that stuff now, and maybe you could track down a couple of the past owners to see if they've had anything like that happening to them. And then when you do the investigation, you do a walk around with the person that is reporting this. You know, show me what you're seeing and where you're seeing it. And once you get that all down, then you can start with your equipment, setting up your equipment and your cameras and all that stuff, and go around and check to see if you got hot spots or to see if you've got any readings, whether it be EMF or radiation or whatever. Questions you should be asking are, you know, has anybody gotten sick in the house, or is anybody continually getting sick in the house? I mean, you could be talking about just a house with radon gas. Look at the position of the beds. Are the beds close to electrical sockets? You know, EMF can really wreck your head. So if the guy's bed, the guy's complaining he can't sleep, or he's getting nightmares, or he's waking up screaming in the middle of the night, or he's waking up seeing stuff, and then you see that his pillow is right up against a duplex plug. He needs to move that bed, because the EPA says that, you know, to be proper to get away from EMF from electrical outlets, you need to be between 5 and 6 feet away. So his bed needs to be 5 or 6 feet away. And we did do that with one case, and the guy got back to us and said, that must have been it. He said, because I have no issues anymore. So there are a lot of things to look at. You know, researching and investigating is more than just taking a report and talking to somebody and hanging up the phone, or going to the house and talking to them and going home after you took a few pictures and this, that, and the other thing. And it depends on the researcher. I mean, I've had people call me up and started complaining about somebody that was researching their case, and they want us to take it over, and we will not do that. If somebody else is investigating it, that's their baby. Where the guy sat for 2 hours talking to people and then asked them if they had a pencil and paper where he could take notes after 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
So, you know,
yeah.
If you're going to do this, you need to do it properly. If you don't know how to do it properly, get a hold of somebody that's been doing it a long time. Ask if you can ride along with them. Ask if you can just go along and watch. Be that observer. You know, that's the way you're going to learn. And there's people out there that have really good backgrounds in investigations for insurance companies, police departments. They couldn't investigate a sighting if their life depended on it, because you take a UFO sighting. I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of reports I've read where nobody checks the weather.
No. Nope.
They don't even look at the weather. They don't look at temperature change, and that should be the same thing in a paranormal investigation, temperature change room to room. But you know, I had a case one time where a guy said he swore and declared this is what he saw, and he went on and on and on. It was an elaborate story. And when I went back home and checked the weather, There's no way he could have seen anything. The ceiling was only 1,500 feet. And this guy's telling me he's seeing this and this and this. I'm going like, impossible. So, it helps you and it helps, get the, sorted out, really. And if you have you can't give up. I mean, you got to look at everything, every little thing, no matter how small it is. If you're looking for debris or you're looking for evidence, you have to do that properly. There's rules of evidence to follow,
Right. But
you don't take something off the ground. Let's just say it's a Bigfoot, and somebody thinks it's a piece of scat. So the guy gets his rubber gloves on, he gets his baggie out, and he puts it in there and he seals it, and then he writes on it the date and time and where it was and all this, that, and the other thing. Then he hands it to his buddy who's eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, who reaches into the bag and says, "What is that?"
Yeah, right.
Well, that's done. And people don't realize that you can contaminate evidence. If you're taking evidence, you should have a mask on. You should have rubber gloves on, because your breath, when people talk, they don't realize it. But if they look at a slow motion camera, every time they open their mouth, there's spittle coming out. What's on your hands? So you want to have gloves. So it encompasses a lot more than people think. And a case can take, you could figure something out, like the guy with the ceiling, 1,500-foot ceiling. Yeah, that was a matter of a few minutes, really. But we have cases where Carbondale, that took us 2.5 years. The Todd Cease case, we're on going into our 6th year with that. And we've had other cases that have taken a year or more.
Let me just jump in there, because
Sure.
Speaking about time, I'm going to let Mark take us out to the break. We're at the top of the hour.
Okay.
And we'll pick up again talking about some of the generalizations that don't hold water right after this break. Mark?
Yes, we're going to be right back right after these messages with our guest, Butch Witkowski, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Can't wait for Halloween to be scared? Coming this June to York, Pennsylvania, Phenomenology 107, the largest and most popular paranormal conference on the planet, returns for its 7th straight year. Come meet some of the top paranormal researchers and experiencers in the field. Attend lectures by the real-life survivors of some of the most notorious hauntings in American history that inspired blockbuster movies such as The Conjuring, Haunting in Connecticut, and the Amityville Horror. Phenomenology 107 is coming to York, Pennsylvania, June 18th through the 21st at the York Holiday Inn and Conference Center. Tickets are now available at www.phenomevents.com. That's phenomevents.com. Happy haunting.
Strange occurrences and phenomena can enter into any person's life, leaving them feeling debilitated and alone. But help is available. Spirit Rescue International is a non-profit group that combines the resources of our affiliates worldwide in order to achieve a successful entity clearing. Our mission is to provide professional, confidential, and ethical spiritual relief, including continued personal support and guidance at no cost to the client. If you have questions, please visit our website at www.spiritrescueinternational.com. Your inquiry can be forwarded to us by the contact form on the website, or you can email us at mail@spiritrescueinternational.com. Take the first step towards genuine peace of mind with Spirit Rescue International.
Hi, this is Solaris Blue Raven with Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio. Tune in on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for an intriguing show pertaining to covert technology, UFOs, paranormal, mysticism, and spirituality.
And welcome back, everyone, to Unknown Origins Radio here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Johnson, along with Bruce Pearson, and we're talking with our guest, Butch Witkowski. And we've been having a wonderful conversation tonight, Butch. I mean, there's so much that we've been covering and wanting to talk about. But before I ask a question, Bruce, you were starting a line of questioning before we were going off the air, and I think you wanted to continue that.
Well, yeah, I'd just like to make a couple points for the listeners that haven't really thought about it. I think it's so disingenuous for any group or organization to spend one night or two nights in a facility, in a building, in a house, or at a location, and to pronounce there's no paranormal activity, there's nothing here. That's akin to dropping your fish hook in the water for 30 seconds and saying there are no fish in the river or the lake or what you have you. It's just, and I think this speaks to what Butch was saying in terms of you're sharing with us the amount. In order to do a proper investigation, just drop in for 3 hours and drop out and make a proclamation that anything is. And this actually applies to some of the hotspots that I've worked with over the years doing documentaries with pilots and stuff. You take a considerable amount of time. If there's more than one sighting on a UFO sighting, you can build a pretty good body of evidence. It's hard to do. That's probably a lot less practical to do in terms of UFO investigations than it is with paranormal. But I think it's just absurd to think that taking one night in a building and you'll be able to make a pronouncement just because there was no activity involved there to draw a grand conclusion. And I also wanted you to mention, to feel free to disagree with me on that, but if you're really going to do a chain of evidence, this is one thing that Chase Klotsky worked on extensively in her book on how to properly conduct an investigation, to protect evidence, to acquire evidence, to not disturb any evidence that you find. And if we're going to have anyone in the skeptic or traditional forensic fields take any of this seriously, then I think the bar has to be raised. And Mark and I have had this discussion many times. If you're just doing this for entertainment value, or you need a night out, I could think of a lot better ways than sitting in a stinky old moldy building all night long in the summer when it's 100 degrees, or in the winter when it's like this and it's 3 degrees. And I've done both, so neither one of them is terribly pleasant. But if that's what you're in it for, that's fine. That's not for me to judge. If you are trying to do a serious investigation, and we've discussed this on a number of shows, first of all, try to have some understanding of the theories, and that's what they are, of why we carry these instruments and why the way they function might indicate something in terms of paranormal evidence. That's the first thing I would recommend. I mean, if all you know about your meter is it's a plastic gadget that the lights light up on it, and when the lights light up on it, then there must be a ghost around. It's hard to say to extrapolate that you're an investigator at that point. Basically, you're just looking at lights on a piece of plastic. Try to understand some of the background, and you'll have a better picture of how all these pieces go together to form a puzzle. That would be my first suggestion to anyone who's serious about it. If you want to have credibility, do your research. Try to the extent that we can in a non-scientific area to learn about the theories behind why a K2 meter works, or how EVPs may or may not happen, and what the mechanism is. You're not going to come up with the answers. If there were answers, I guess we wouldn't be having this discussion. That's kind of my pet peeve about it. If you're going to try to be professional, then try to be professional. Don't just go out and buy a bunch of equipment and run around with, and a lot of the equipment sold that's out there sold now for the paranormal hunters. A lot of that stuff is, like you say, the lights light up. Well, it could have been your buddy's buckle that lit it up. Who knows? But if you buy a good EMF meter and a good radiation detector, I mean, those are things that are not going to fail you. And another thing I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to say it and I forgot.
When you are doing research on a home, one of the things you absolutely want to do is get to your historical society, if there's one available in the area, or a library. Go through old papers, old newspaper articles, whatever you can find on that particular house or that particular area, or the dates. That information in your pocket when you get into the investigation, where you're actually on the scene and you're going to start setting up your equipment, doing this and the other thing, okay, so the Historical Society said that, there was a fire here in 1895 and the home was rebuilt 3 times, but in that 1895 fire, the whole family perished.
Right.
Okay, so now you got a little something that you can put on your tag on your investigative report. Or there was a murder committed in the 40s or something next door or down the street or out front, or there was a terrible crash and a bunch of people. Most paranormal activity, from what I understand and what I've seen, take place in areas where there's been a death, a violent death. I spoke at a meeting up in Johnstown, and the guy said to me, he said, when we had the flood here, he said, that little bridge you crossed over? I said, oh, yeah, coming into town. He said, oh, okay. He said, when the flood happened, he said, homes from upstream got washed down, and they all jammed up in these rivers at the bridge. They just started hitting each other, and before you know it, there was just this whole conglomeration of houses stacked on top of each other, and they caught fire. Because cooking back then was fire. And he said people were screaming, they couldn't get to them, they couldn't get them out, there was no way they could even get near them. And he said, many people have reported to his group up there that, on certain nights that are close to the dates of the first flood, they hear people screaming, asking for help, and this, that, and the other thing. He said, we have not had one paranormal group come up to investigate that, and he said, we've asked many.
Oh, there you go. But
so
you can't paint everybody with the same brush, but
right.
I think it's important, and for my money, by way of example, I have to give kudos to Dead Files. I mean, I think that is a clear indication of if you're really going to do an independent documented historical record, background check, then that's the way you do it. And I think that to me, that's one of the most well represented shows on television of how paranormal research can be done. It's not the only way by any means.
Back in 1974, they had an incident here in Pennsylvania called the Carbondale sighting incident or lantern incident, where a group of kids saw something fall into a mine area where there was a silt pond. Okay. And it was sizzling, and it was bright, and this and the other thing, and it goes on and on and on with the police showing up and shooting at it, but the researcher that took it on was out of Philadelphia, and he for years just said that this was a joke, it was a hoax. The kids threw a lantern in there, and this lantern was being moved around in the silt pond by the underwater movements and the currents. Read the report, and that was what hit me in the face. Currents in a silt pond?
Right. It's a static pond. It's not like a flowing river.
So, it took me almost 2 years to get his report, because he goes into great depth on the internet about what took place. He was there for almost 2.5 days. He was called in by the police and all this stuff. And it took me almost 2 years to find his report, and I found it. CUFOS had a file with the report, the actual report. And so I called CUFOS, and I talked to Dr. Rodinger, and I asked him if I could have a copy of it, and he said, sure, send me the postage. So I sent him $3. He sent me this thing, and I read it. This investigator, for whatever reason, instead of being there for 2.5 days, what it boiled down to there, he was more like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Huh.
2 hours and 20 minutes. But anybody that questioned the Carbondale incident was made out to be a fool, an idiot, whatever he wanted to call him at that particular day. It was always something different. And when he found out we were investigating it, he called me. And he said, I didn't know anybody was really interested in this. And I told him, and, you know, I'm not interested in 45, 50-year-old memories. I said, but I'm going to look at it forensically and see what I can come up with. So besides the lantern moving around the water, which was nonsense, I bought 6 lanterns, the exact lantern. I got a hold of the manufacturer of the lantern. I got a hold of the manufacturer of the battery. I asked him, because in his report, he says that when they pulled the lantern out of the water, it was all corroded. It was seeping its electrolyte. Right. So, you know, when I talked to the battery people, I said, how long would this thing be lit? Because it was supposed to be lit many hours. I said, how long would this thing be lit with the battery in that condition? And the guy said, never would have been lit. He said, the continuity was gone. He said, that's it.
Well, he said you submerged both terminals, it's sure.
Yeah, he said this thing, never would have been lit. So we tried to find the original lantern, and the chief of police had that, and he sold it at a yard sale for $5. Yeah, well, okay. We found some pictures of the lantern, of the light in the pond, and it's a lot bigger than a lantern. And when you look at the lantern, we took it apart. The handle, it's aluminum, but the handle weighs like 4 ounces.
Right.
With the battery in the bottom part, it weighs a couple, 3 pounds. So this thing was supposed to be thrown by these kids into the pond, and it landed handle down.
Hardly.
I tell you how many times I threw it in that pond, and it never landed handle down. It's impossible. And so we made the report up. We published the report and basically said that, you know, you lied. But they now have a Carbondale. How should I call it? It's not a conference. It's like a Carbondale UFO days or something they call it. Twice now. They've had it 2 years in a row. Twice I've contacted them and asked them if I could come and speak at it, my own expense, and bring along the report. And twice they said, no, thank you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did they tell you why they declined a free offer, or somebody who's...
No, sir. I have the report made by the supposedly initial investigator with all the names, dates, who all contacted who. I mean, the government was involved, NASA was involved. I mean, they have all these phone calls listed from who they talked to at NASA, who they talked to with the Air Force, and all this stuff. And one of the things he said when he was saying it was a hoax, well, there's no way you could get out of this place. Well, we've been there a number of times, and of course, you know, walking around, I just walked around this big clump of old coal, dirt, and stuff like that. And there's a road that's wide enough to take 2 tractor trailers side by side through. Now, the in-road, my truck barely made it through the in-road, but the out-road, so that was his thing. You couldn't get a truck that size down that road. Well, no, not down that road you couldn't, but the other road you could. And so here we sit with the evidence. I mean, I have that man's report, signed, sealed, delivered, numbered, the whole 9 yards, and they don't want to see it.
Who was this man affiliated with, do you know?
His group was called the Philadelphia UFO Research Center or something like that.
Huh.
I'm trying to think of what it was called. But anyway, I mean, there were a lot of witnesses. I mean, there were 5 kids. There were 6 police officers involved. You had 2 scuba divers. You had a photographer there. MUFON was involved. APRO was involved. His outfit was called the 20th Century UFO Bureau.
That sounds a bit commercialized. But beyond that, though, you would think that if they were now, is this a private or nonprofit or volunteer group that's promoting this event now?
Well, the guys have a radio station. The 2 guys that put it on evidently have a radio station, and they put it on. And I missed it the first year, and then somebody brought it to my attention, but it was like 2 months late. So I sent them an email and said, look, you know, I have this original report. And I said, I'll be more than welcome to come up and, you know, and well, I never heard back. So I thought, well, it was too late anyway. So finding out about the other one in time, I sent them another email and said, look, you know, I have the full report. I mean, you're getting a report where you have NORAD, you have the Air Force, you have NASA, and the NASA call to the police department is documented at being lasting from 1 to 1.5 hours. For a lantern? I don't think so. And
you would think that they would want to communicate it as being more legitimate than a lantern thrown in the pond.
Yeah, and there were little things in there like the police officer, the lantern moving. The police officer in the boat was trying to hook it. Okay, now it's sitting in like 12 foot of water, and he's using a 4-foot stick to hook it.
There you go. That'll work.
Yeah. So there were so many things that stood out that just jumped off that report that, I sat here and basically laughed for about an hour thinking like, oh, this is going to be a fun report. And just taking the report apart and just using his report, nothing else. And it was crazy. And after we published it on the website, he called me again to wish me a Merry Christmas. That was it.
Well, there are many layers to this onion of why legitimate research, or as much as we can as volunteers and people doing not for a living, try to push the ball up the hill, why little progress is made. And this is, along with the professional skeptics who are never held to the same standard as anyone else would be. You've got people in it for their own agendas, their own reasons. It just, every one of these situations or incidents is just an impediment for the research to go on legitimately. So I think you just have to try to keep raising the bar, do the best you can. And I don't think there's anything wrong in calling out people that just, are clearly knuckleheads or have their own agendas that are counterproductive.
Did you ever notice this, that groups that are out there, when they take on new members, and I don't care what size group it is, when they take on new members, they get no training?
None. No orientation, no background. This is what, and I had a number of groups on the paranormal side come through, and I would ask them, and just discreetly as a poll, we had 20 groups lined up to go through the Red Mill down there at any given time, and there weren't enough weekends to do it. And I'd say, well, tell me about your, I'd ask them when they call and try to get some idea whether, it's just a name with somebody calling off a phone that wanted to have the frat house out for a fun time. And I never ran into that, but I always ask the question, really, what kind of training do you give these people? Well, we have this equipment and that. Okay. Well, you didn't answer my question. So, yeah, great point. I mean, nobody gets an orientation or training And there are enough good researchers out there. Exactly. I don't mean to.
That could put a training session together at the local fire company or the local library for a few hours on once a month for free, no charge, and actually show people at least the right direction to start in. But when you got 3 girls, and I warned them. I basically talked them out of it. There were 3 girls that were going to go to a cemetery that has not been utilized for 40 or 50 years here in the county, and they were going to spend the night in the cemetery looking for ghosts. And I said, this is not a good idea.
No.
For a number of reasons. First of all, you don't know who's lurking in that cemetery. You don't know what's going on. You don't know your way around. You've never been there before. You haven't even been there in the daylight. So just packing up a lunch and grabbing a flashlight and running around in a cemetery that's been shut down for 40 or 50 years is not really a good move. I said, not that anybody could grab you or anything like that, but I said, what if you walked across a grave that was sinking? Or a tombstone fell on you. I said, heavy. Or a monument. That'll kill you. I said, there's nobody, it's 3 girls. They're all in their 20s, and they're going to go stomping around in the cemetery. I said, bad idea, don't do it. And they didn't, eventually. They didn't do it. But they were going to. They actually called to find out if they could borrow some equipment. And I said, sure, where are you going? And they started telling me that, and I was like, holy crap, man, I panicked. I said, this is not going to turn out well.
Well, yeah, we do live in the real world, and people get hurt, and, But it's the same thing with, in Bigfoot research. You're out in the woods. Mostly it's done at night. Right.
I mean,
it can be dangerous.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the woods that'll hurt you. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily have to be stationary. It could be on four legs.
Well, yeah, I have a friend who runs the Ohio Bigfoot Hunters, Tim Stover, and he had recently had posted when he was out in the woods, and because he's out almost every day Bigfoot researching, and he was out in the woods one day, and as he was walking out, he heard something behind him, and he turned around. There's a coyote right behind him, and that coyote paced him and followed him out, and scared the crap out of him because, you know, where there's one, there's usually more.
Yeah, they pack.
Now, a coyote alone, you could probably back it off. A coyote with a group, you ain't backing off.
No,
if they're in a pack, you're not going to stop them. When I lived out in Arizona, I used to have one that used to sunbathe out in my backyard. And very docile, never bothered anything. My dogs would come out and bark at him, and they'd go back in, and he'd just lay there, nothing. When 2 or 3 of them were out there, and my dogs came out, man, they started showing teeth and getting really defensive to the point where I was holding a handgun. Snakes, I mean, come on. There's just so many things. And but it's all in the researcher's mind. What do they want to do? If they want to have fun and games, they should go to a haunted house.
Yeah.
Pay the $10 and go through the thing and let them scare you and go home happy. But if you want to go out and you want to do it legitimately and the right way, there are precautions, there are steps to be taken, there's an investigative protocol you need to follow, you need to do your research, and when you tell people they got to read a book or they got to go to the historical society, they go, oh my, why do I got to do that? Well, there's a reason for it. I mean, you're not going to go in there looking like a dummy. The one case that I went on with another group, which really impressed me because a couple of times I went with other groups and they never did it. This guy pulled out a file, and he had the complete history of that home, who lived there. He had every owner. Now, a bunch of them were passed away, but he did find the previous owner who he checked with, who said, well, yeah, I did have some strange things happen in the house, but he said I paid no attention to them because I wasn't there all the time. I was on the road. I was a salesman. And now these people are having the same thing he had, and he hasn't lived in the house for years. So, I mean, that's a start.
Right.
And, but, yeah, I guess it's more exciting to...
Well, I think the other side of that coin is, though, you know, go sit in 8-degree weather all night long.
Yeah.
If you're not serious about it, that'll flush out the weak part pretty quickly.
Yeah, real quick. You know, with our van, you know, we have a canopy to set up, we have computers to set up, we have a heater, 9,000 BTU heater. We have, you know, there's food, there's stuff to drink. I mean, nobody says it has to be uncomfortable.
No.
You know, and I mean, and you're sharper. You know, you're not drowsing off if you have a hot cup of coffee in your hand that was just made, or you know, you got warmth, and you know, you can actually work at your computer and do what you want without freezing fast to the keyboard, and comes down to you're either going to do it for real or you're going to do it for fun. So.
Right.
Butch, let me ask you a question, not trying to change the subject, but I wanted to get your thoughts on, because one of our listeners in the chat room also brought it up, wanted to know, what are your thoughts on this new report that's coming out of Manitoba about this crashed UFO? Have you heard anything on that, or have you, what are your thoughts on it?
I got a hold of a friend of mine up in Canada who sent me a newspaper clipping that this military exercise. It's a winter exercise. It's held every year. It's just held in different parts of Canada. And this year it was held in Manitoba there. And it's basically a winter exercise for the troops. There was nothing seen. There were reporters, local reporters were on the site, and they didn't see anything other than the military guys, you know, setting up the kitchen and pitching tents and parking trucks. The first reports were that it was a pyramid shape that was sticking out. Well, there was a pyramid shape sticking out. It was a piece of ice. And then when they said it was a piece of ice, then it graduated to a saucer. And then when they said, no, you're just looking at the ice from a different angle, and then it turned into a tube. So I think it probably was just a military exercise.
Okay. It's always good to get the professionals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I first saw it, I went like, wow, Roswell.
Yeah, right.
But, I've had so many Roswells already. I read so many Roswells already. I'm getting crazy.
I know. What, disinformation on the internet? Say it isn't so.
Yeah, that can't be a lie.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, we're talking about, people tramping around the woods and, doing things that maybe that are not quite so safe. And that kind of leads me to segue into, one of the cases that you've worked on and we've discussed with you before is the Todd Seas case.
Mm-hmm.
And, you've done a lot of research on that case. And yet there are similar cases out there. And I know, there's David Paulides who has his book on Missing 411.
Right.
And if you look at the number of people who disappear in this country every year. And while there are a lot of them who disappear of their own free will, people trying to fly under the radar, start a new life, whatnot, what's going on, especially in our national parks, is almost frightening.
Because, there are cases where, people are walking with a group and they just walk out of the way to, like, relieve themselves or just take a look over a little nook or a little hill, and they're gone. There's cases where guys have a guy walked out of a bar on a Saturday night where he was with his friends, and it was quite a group. It was like 8 or 10 people. Said, "Hey, look, I'll go get the car." He walked in, and they watched him walk into the parking lot. And after about 15 minutes, he wasn't there. Didn't come back. Car didn't come back. So they went in. There was the car, and he was gone. He's never been seen since. Where'd he go?
And
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I mean, one of the things, and again, something that we're starting to look into, and there's a big schism between, the nuts and bolts types of investigators, whether or not you're paranormal, Bigfoot, UFO. There are the people who lean towards the tried and true explanations, the nuts and bolts explanations, or even like the undiscovered animal. And yet, I know I've personally have been leaning the opposite way of all these different possibilities that almost defy our comprehension, that could lean towards the possible multidimensional aspect, parallel world aspects. And
a good researcher should keep his mind open to that.
Yeah, and it seems like that adds an explanation to a lot of these things that we see that seem to vanish. They're there, and then they vanish right in front of us. Some of the paranormal aspects that creatures like Bigfoot or Sasquatch seems to have in some cases that people have reported. And even these cases, let's say somebody turns around, walks around a corner, and is gone and never be seen again. Where did they go? On the paranormal side of it, and this is a story I've related here on the show often, is when people talk about residual hauntings and being able to seeing a woman in a Victorian dress walking down the stairs, and people say, well, that's they try to explain it by saying, well, the granite in the ground or not flowing water and something imprinted and it replays over and over, and yet more and more lately I'm leaning towards possibly the either multidimensional and even the time aspect, where even physicists look at string theory and other theories thinking that time is all time's happening at once. And it's only our perception of it that makes it seem linear. So somebody who sees that ghost walking down the stairs, are you seeing a ghost? Are you seeing maybe a live, living, breathing person who, in just another time period that you can, whatever conditions happen, you're just temporarily seeing them.
Right. And that was one of the things that really crossed my mind with the fellow up there in the state game land. Seeing that the creature did not look at him, was the creature in another area, time zone, dimension, that he saw it for that brief time, but it never saw him. Or, had it looked at him or something like that, I probably would have thought a little different, but he said it paid him no mind. Now, a Weimaraner is a large dog.
Yeah.
And two of those dogs, I mean, if they'd be ripping at something trying to get to me, I'd be running. there is no way I'd just ignore them and just walk on. But again, the researcher has to, or the investigator has to keep their mind open. Like I said before, I know there's this big riff in the community of Bigfoot. The guys are saying, well, we never found anything because they're interdimensional. And you got the other guys saying, well, you never found anything because they're smarter than you are. It just goes back and forth and back and forth, and you kind of get tired of listening to that. What they should do is keep an open mind. Yes, it could be a lost primate. It could be some lost human race from wherever. It could be interdimensional. It could be a time traveler. It could be a parallel world that you briefly get to glimpse. That's why they disappear on you. There's so many questions, but the answers aren't there. So what they should do instead of arguing with each other is start looking for answers. Start putting reports together where this happens, where people are reports of where they disappear in front of them, or it catches it on a camera. And I'm just one of those guys that, and I may be wrong, but walking around, knocking on trees, nailing bacon to the wall and throwing out donuts and running through torches and screaming at the top of your lungs isn't going to get anything.
No, I agree.
I think electronically is the way you're going to get them. Set up your cameras. I mean, they have trail cameras now that are wireless. They're good for 2 or 3 miles. You can set those things high in a tree, face them down, face them in the direction that you're looking, and go back and sit in your truck and watch them on your computer.
Yeah, at the same time, I know researchers who have used them, and whenever they seem to think that these creatures always seem to know when they're up, because you can have activity in an area, and the second they put up the cameras, then the activity stops. It's like they sense them. And if these creatures are sensitive to electromagnetic fields, and let's face it, you have these equipment, they're electrical, right. They have batteries, they're going to have an EMF field that they're sensitive to that, and that's why they avoid them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that, and I want to tell you something. If I see somebody running through the woods with a torch, screaming at the top of their lungs, throwing bacon at me, I'm going to hit him in the head with a stick.
Well, I don't know. It is bacon. I mean, you can't turn
it into bacon. That's right. Yeah, well, let's go with a beef sandwich. I'd rather have bacon.
Let me jump in there, and for the sake of the listeners that aren't familiar with it, because I think it's an amazing tale. And would you mind relating the Todd C's situation and story?
Sure.
And I just want to preface it with this. Agree, disagree, skeptical, believer, whatever you are, remember, this fellow lost his life. There's family members and so that's where the real world touches whatever you want to think. And that's a shame on any level, whatever happened to him, whether, whatever the facts are. And, that's the real fact is somebody died. And that's pretty hard to walk around and ignore. So I just wanted to put that up front because I think sometimes people...
And that's very important because there are real people involved.
I mean, there's family members involved here. So this is a joke. And it's not...
I mean, this was a father, a brother, an uncle, exactly. A cousin who had family and a mom and dad and children.
It's a shame. But anyway, and
the story is that the gentleman, Todd Cease, gets up, last time he's seen alive is at 1 a.m. in the morning. He leaves the house at 5 a.m. to do some preseason deer spotting, which he did a lot of. He was a big guy, in hunting and fishing. He was really enjoying that, mostly archery.
And where was this now? This
was in Northumberland County, Pennsylvania. So his home is at the base of the Northumberland Ridge, which is a 6 square mile ridge in that area. So he jumps on his four-wheeler and he heads up to the mountain, which he did a lot, from what we gather. And says to the wife, he'll be back at noon like he always is. And he's dressed in lightweight camouflage coverall. And off he goes. And 12 o'clock rolls around. He doesn't show up. 2 o'clock rolls around. The wife gets panicked. It was very hot and humid that day. She thought maybe heat stroke or something like that, or he had an accident with the ATV. So she calls the police. Police start a search party. And to make a long story short, 200 searchers go over that mountain, all 6 square miles of it. They find the ATV a mile away. There are cadaver dogs. There are search dog, bloodhounds. There are people on horseback, ATVs, a state police helicopter. They don't see him. He doesn't see them. The family's out. They know exactly where he goes. They go to the spots he normally went to. He's not there. So there's no keys with the ATV. The ATV is just parked there. There's no signs of any struggle or anything like that. So they search till nightfall, and they give up at nightfall, and then they resume it first light next morning. Same group out there looking, hunting, and they don't find him. And at a little before 8 o'clock at night, the next day, a searcher sees something in the underbrush behind the house. Well, like 150 yards from the home, there's a small pond, and then there's a bunch of old downed trees and stuff, and he sees something laying under the downed tree, and it's Mr. Cease. And to get there would be impossible. The condition of the body was remarkable in that it was decaying. Now, this is only in a little less than 40 hours. There was no way there was going to be an open casket with this body. Then the strange things start to happen when we looked into it, where the coroner said he wasn't involved, yet he was the coroner. He said he wasn't. It was somebody else, but he beat that guy 2 years earlier in the election. The police department on us around. They weren't the ones that investigated it. It was the state police. They had nothing to do with it. We started looking into Mr. Cease. We couldn't find any records for him. No high school records, no birth records, no this records, that record. I mean, he did, in plain English, he was a truck driver, so he should have had a Pennsylvania driver's license. He didn't. I mean, we couldn't find one. I found mine. I found mine when I took my test when I was 16 years old. I'm 68. But I found mine. I went into the Social Security Death Index. I looked up my father, who passed away in 1970, and the information that's in there is like name, date of birth, where he worked, where we lived, our home phone number, brothers and sisters, wife's name, where he went to school, when he graduated, military service. I mean, all that stuff is there. I went into Todd Cease's. The only thing that's there is born, died, date. Where it goes down to the next column, which would say family record, it says none found. We looked in his background because the cause of death came back as a cocaine overdose. We got the autopsy report and the toxicology report, and I'm sure that coroner is very sorry that he sold it to us because that just opened up a whole can of worms. The amount of degraded cocaine in his body, had he taken that amount to get that amount of degraded cocaine in his body, he probably would have taken the hit and took about 2 steps when he fell over dead. Things that were wrong with the autopsy was they took no nasal swabs. They didn't look for puncture wounds. There was very little blood to take from the cavity. Every autopsy I've ever attended, blood was always taken from the chest cavity. In his case, there wasn't enough there, so they took it from the lower leg, which is very odd. His autopsy showed that there was no trauma. The autopsy, the body was unremarkable. He had no diseases. Everything was intact where it should have been. Now, had he taken that amount of cocaine, there would have been damage not only to the brain, but to the lungs. There would have been bleeding, hematomas, just a whole lot of stuff missing. And not going on just my experiences. I mean, I took this information to forensic pathologists. I took it to doctors. My brother-in-law's a doctor. I mean, everybody looked at it and said the same thing. This is pretty much BS. And I said, yeah, that's kind of what I figured. We looked up if he was such a huge cocaine user, we looked up his criminal record. We found one thing. We found that he was arrested for speeding 2 years prior, which he pled guilty to and paid the $50 fine. That was all we could find there. He had no military records, no driver's license records, no hunting license records, no high school records, even though we do have a picture of him in high school in the yearbook. The records are not there for him. Everybody else, but not him. So basically the guy was erased Now, there's only one group I know of that can erase you. I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell your listeners who that is. But just many things wrong with the case. Family members lied to us. The coroner lied to us. The family said they actually found, he wasn't found in his camouflage clothing. He was found in cut-off jeans, socks, and a T-shirt. Boots were never found. The family found the coveralls, and they went through the pockets looking for the keys for the ATV. Of course, there was none. There was nothing else in the pockets, but they did turn the coveralls over to the police department. And in the autopsy report, it says that the coroner says the police department called him and said they found cocaine in his pocket. Now, I don't know about you, but if that would have been my brother out there and the circumstances would have been the same and there would have been cocaine in the pocket, I'd have buried it.
Yeah, no kidding. Serves no purpose at that point. Now, what was the distance between the ATV and where they found him behind the house?
1 mile of extremely rough, rocky terrain.
And he had no shoes on?
No shoes on.
Okay. Were his feet all cut up?
Nope. Dirty. Muddy. But now here's the best part, or what I call the best part.
Yes.
There was a report given the day he disappeared, the day he disappeared in the morning. We don't have an exact time, where some guys were fishing in the river, which is right down from his house on the other side of the road. And they said what they reported was a craft above the power lines where the ATV was found. And it looked like somebody being pulled up by a light beam in their underwear. Now, at the distance from the river to where the ATV was found, it would look like somebody in their underwear. But in fact, he had on a camouflage T-shirt and a pair of cut-off jeans and socks. So we find something out about this case. There's people working on this case in Australia. We have people in New Zealand. We have psychics. We have police officers. We have federal people that are with our cold case unit that are working on this case, and we're going into our 6th year. And I always say my little 1-inch binder that I started with is now a 6-inch binder that's going to be graduating into a 10-inch binder shortly, I think. Everything we have, we've documented. I have nothing word of mouth. Everything that we got is either on an email from the person that gave it to us, or it's from, like the toxicology people, it's on their letterhead. From the autopsy, it's on their letterhead. From the coroner, it's on his letterhead. Police department's on their letterhead. So nobody's ever going to say when this case is brought to an end eventually that we made up anything about the case. Everything has been documented. It's black and white on paper. The maps, the photographs, everything are verified and true. So, and that's the thing that's really taken a long time. You know, when somebody wants to talk to you, we say, well, I'd rather if you just send me your information on an email. So whether it's relevant or not, I have that information. I have that request from whoever it was. And that's one of the things where, like I was just saying earlier in the show, everything needs to be documented, no matter what you do. Because if you have no documentation, if you just have a story, you have no case.
Right.
You have no evidence. So if the coroner says, well, that U4 cop group, they lied, I never sent them the autopsy. Well, I have his letter, and I have the autopsy report, and I got the letter and the toxicology report, and his name's on them, and he signed it. So if he pulls that, I'll just put that all over the internet, and that'll be the end of him. First of all, I don't think he's allowed to sell that kind of information. That should have been public knowledge.
Well, that's copy costs, I'm sure.
Yeah, so anyway, the case is still open. We work it actively, and we will continue to work on it till we get an answer. But right now, if somebody said to me, what do I think I have? With all the information that we have and the condition of the body and the cocaine and all the circumstances around, either I have something that's a very, very strange, out of the ordinary case, or I have the first case that can document a zombie. Because there is no way that man in that condition walked 1 mile or crawled 1 mile or flew 1 mile to the location he was found behind his home. When that whole day, that whole second day, people had to walk by that location to get on the trail to go over to the ridge. So all these people are walking past this body and they don't see it. They don't smell it.
When they're looking for it.
Now, the dogs don't smell it. Let me tell you something. I worked with a cadaver dog one time, found the body 4 foot under dirt and rock.
Yeah, they don't make mistakes like that. Was there also, if I remember correctly, there was a bit of an anomaly with his casket and...
Well, yeah, the casket was sealed. They say some things we couldn't document because people just clammed up, which was like the funeral director and the even though the coroner had the funeral director had a funeral home or has a funeral home, he was not the one that had the burial. It was another outfit in the town. And but when you look at the condition of the body through the autopsy report, you can understand why it was a closed casket. There was no way they were going to open up the casket for this guy, so he was in a sealed casket. But to make that proper, I've seen reports where people have said, well, the casket was lead and it was sealed and it was welded shut and this, that, and the other. Nonsense. All caskets are sealed.
Right.
I mean, when they turn those locks, that they pull that little piece of plastic tape off. That's a tar strip, and that seals the casket. But anyway, one of the other things that was unique was when I asked one of my cold case members asked the family why the dogs didn't smell the body for the condition it was in. They said, "Oh, we had this terrible rain." Here's where weather played a big part. Went right back to the weather, pulled the weather for that location, for that day, for those hours, for that day. It rained 0.001 inch.
Well, there you go.
That's not even enough to wet my driveway.
No, that's not even a sprinkle.
Nope. So this hard rain that was told to us, that's why they couldn't see or smell the body. And nowhere else in any report does it say that it rained that day.
Well, they still smell the body. I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the condition that body was, you should have been able to smell this guy within a mile.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It was bad. And to get to that, and here's another part, which we're still working on, and we're still getting information from forensic guys. Excuse me.
Yeah, how do you get that decayed that quickly?
Exactly. I mean, the body takes... a body takes certain steps when it's gone. You have livor mortis, you have rigor mortis, and that goes away, and then you have the stage where larva stage for maggots and then flies, and it goes on and on and on until it rots. But this guy had skin slippage already.
Yeah, see, that's even if it's warm temperature.
I mean, he wasn't bloated. They couldn't take any fluid from the eyes because they said the eyes were pretty much gone.
Wow.
From decay.
Jeez. And that is over.
If you look at a person that's laid, and not particularly him, but you look at any body, a cadaver that's out in the open, the fluid in the eyes dry up, and they just. It's like letting a grape out in the sun. It just shrivels up. Well, that's what the same thing happens to the eye. And it's there, but there's nothing there. I mean, it's not round anymore. It's kind of like a dried out.
Fluid's all.
Yeah, the viscerous fluid is gone.
Wow.
It's just one of these cases that we're just not going to give up on. There's just too much there.
And that took place in 2010, if I'm correct, right?
2002.
Oh, that long ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was asked about it at a conference, and to be honest, I didn't even know about it. I said, I never heard that story, but when I came home from the conference, I pulled it up, and the original reporter was Peter Davenport from Newport, from Washington State. But his whole report is information garnered from the newspapers. There's very few anything in there that's from anybody. Like, we talked to some friends. He was very big with Little League. We talked to some people that were with the Little League. He was involved with those kids for a long time. And they said, let me tell you something. The one guy said, if he would have had a hint of any drugs being used by Todd Cease, He wouldn't have got within 5 blocks of these kids. No way. Impossible. And we checked with halfway houses. We checked with the county. We checked with everybody that would handle, that type of a situation where you have a drug addict. They didn't have nothing on this guy. So,
did any of the local papers champion this story as being odd, or they just kind of?
Well, they did until we got involved. About the end of the first year, we could still get the stuff from the newspaper in their archives.
Right.
Which we got and printed and, documented and put into our evidence file. Now that whole thing has been wiped. It's not even on their archives anymore.
And how do they explain that when you question, if you had...
They don't. They just don't respond. Just like the fire company. The fire company doesn't even have and they're supposed to, have a report for even going out on that call those 2 days.
And what do the state police say?
The investigator that handled that case retired, I think, in 2007, 6, and I wasn't looking at it until 2009.
Well, that tells you something.
And you can't and they won't give you any information like where he lives or anything like that.
No, of course not. Well, to some extent, you understand that. But however, if it's with the public record, those records have to be
but there's a way to get around that, which the attorney for the county, district attorney for that county, can't release any of that information because it is still an open case.
Open case, right. That's how they get around that.
Yep.
And you said and if I remember an interview you conducted that I heard prior to this, that the coroner was less than forthcoming, the funeral director was less than forthcoming.
Oh, yeah, they all lied. We got them. What they told us in emails, and then we responded by saying, just take the coroner. He was not at the scene. He doesn't know when the body was found or where it was found. He was the only coroner at the scene.
Gentlemen, I hate to be
the coroner retired 2 years prior, and he beat him in the election.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we are literally coming up on 1 minute till the show is out. So, right. Butch, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Again, another fabulous conversation with you tonight. As you could tell, we could have kept going at least another hour or two here.
Oh, at least.
Real quick, where can people find you?
www.uforcop.com, and that's on Facebook or our website. On Facebook, they just click on Facebook and they can go to U4Cop website. And there's a lot of information there. They can go to our homepage, our website, and go to our closed cases, open cases. They can see what we're doing, where we're at. We are going to have a paranormal roundtable on April 18th, 2015 in Alberta, Pennsylvania. They can find that information also on there. So if you want to sit down with a whole bunch of investigators and ask us the questions and get the answers you're looking for, we'll be there from 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night.
Well, again, Butch, thank you very much for coming on the show. We really loved having you on.
Anytime, guys.
Great information. Thank you very much, man. All the best to you.
And thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for listening to another edition of Unknown Origins Radio. Tune in every Thursday night here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Be safe. See you next week, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.